Imagine the heart of the greatest empire the world has ever seen, ancient Rome falling into chaos. The once unstoppable Roman Empire brought to its knees by two Gothic kings, outsiders who were labelled as barbarians. King Alaric, with the Visigoths, stormed Rome in 410 AD, shocking the entire world. And later, in 476 AD, the final emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was overthrown, marking the true fall of Rome. But what really happened? This isn't just a tale of war and destruction. This is a story of ambition, betrayal, and survival. The rise of the Visigoths, the might of the Ostrogoths, and the end of an era. How did King Alaric tear down the walls of Rome? What fate awaited Odoacer, the man who displaced the last Roman emperor? And why did the Roman Empire collapse so completely under the pressure of the Goths? If you think you know the story of the fall of Rome, think again. In the next few minutes, we'll unravel the truth behind the pivotal moments that changed the course of European history forever. I'll take you deep into the events of 410, when Alaric's armies roamed the streets of Rome. We'll explore what truly happened in 476, when the Roman Empire breathed its last, and how Odoacer sealed his own fate. There will be no fluff, no myths, just total history. Born around 370 AD on Puce Island in the Danube Delta, Alaric was no ordinary child. His people, the Visigoths, had long been on the move, fleeing the relentless pressure of the Huns. The Visigoths were not just warriors, they were a people seeking a homeland, a future. The Visigoths, led by their king Fritigernus, sought asylum within the borders of the Roman Empire. In 376 AD, they were allowed to settle in Thrace as federati, Roman allies, who would provide military service in exchange for land and protection. But the Romans failed to honor their promises. Famine and mistreatment led to unrest, setting the stage for a historic clash between the Goths and Rome. In 378 AD, the tension exploded into open conflict. On August 9th, 378 at Adrianople, Eastern Roman Emperor Valens faced the Visigoths, led by Fritigernus, in a battle that would shake the empire to its core. The Romans, confident in their numbers and power, underestimated the Gothic cavalry. The legions were surrounded, overwhelmed by the sheer ferocity of the Gothic charge. In the chaos, Emperor Valens was killed, and 2/3 of the Roman army was annihilated. For Rome, it was a disaster. For the Visigoths, it was a triumph. The defeat of Valens at Adrianople was catastrophic for Rome, resulting in significant losses. Estimates suggest over 10,000 Roman soldiers died, including Valens himself. This battle marked a turning point for the Goths and solidified their position as a formidable force against Rome. The victory inspired Alaric and other Gothic leaders, fostering ambitions for greater autonomy and territorial control within the empire. This defeat marked a pivotal moment in military history, demonstrating that heavy cavalry could decisively overcome traditional Roman infantry tactics. It signaled a shift in military dominance from Rome to barbarian forces, particularly the Goths. The death of Emperor Valens created a power vacuum in the Eastern Roman Empire. His demise led to instability and necessitated the rise of his successor, Theodosius I, who would later stabilize the empire by negotiating peace with the Goths. Following their victory, the Goths rampaged across the Balkans, pillaging Roman territories and increasing their numbers through defection from enslaved Goths within the empire. This period of unrest laid the groundwork for future invasions and conflicts with other barbarian groups. The defeat at Adrianople exposed significant weaknesses in Roman military organization and strategy. In response, Theodosius I adapted by incorporating more cavalry into his forces and relying on barbarian mercenaries, indicating a shift in military tactics that acknowledged the changing nature of warfare. While the Eastern Roman Empire would continue to exist for over a millennium after Adrianople, this battle is often viewed as a precursor to the eventual decline of the Western Roman Empire. The loss emboldened barbarian groups and set off a chain reaction of invasions that culminated in events like the sack of Rome by Alaric in 410 AD. Despite the bitterness of Adrianople, the Visigoths remained tied to Rome, and Alaric's military prowess did not go unnoticed. He rose to become a trusted leader in the Roman army, serving as a foederati commander under Emperor Theodosius the Great. Theodosius needed the Visigoths to help secure his fractured empire. Alaric fought in Theodosius's campaigns against the Franks, as well as in the battles to reunify the eastern and western halves of the empire. He participated in campaigns against various enemies of Rome, including the usurper Eugenius. Notably, he played a role in the Battle of Frigidus in 394 AD, where he led Gothic troops that helped Emperor Theodosius defeat Eugenius's forces. It was only after that battle that Christianity became the state religion in Rome. After that, Alaric demanded annual payments of gold and grain as well as military recognition within the Roman hierarchy. However, these requests were repeatedly denied by Emperor Honorius and his advisors, leading to increasing frustration among the Goths. The execution of Flavius Stilicho, a powerful general who had been an ally to Alaric, in 408 CE, created a power vacuum and intensified anti-barbarian sentiments within Rome. This led to further deterioration of relations between the Visigoths and the Roman authorities. Alaric laid siege to Rome multiple times between 408 and 410 AD. During these sieges, he attempted to negotiate terms with Honorius, but was consistently rebuffed. In 409 CE, Alaric briefly lifted his siege after proclaiming Attalus as a puppet emperor, hoping to leverage this new political situation to gain concessions from Honorius. By 410 AD, after negotiations failed once again, Alaric prepared for a final assault on Rome. On August 24th, he received assistance from sympathizers within the city who opened the Salarian Gate, allowing his forces to enter. Once inside, Alaric and his troops embarked on a 3-day spree of plunder. They looted wealthy homes and public buildings while sparing Christian churches like St. Peter's and St. Paul's. Despite the violence associated with such an event, reports indicate that Alaric's forces treated ordinary citizens relatively humanely compared to later sackings of cities. Historical accounts suggest that Alaric's forces seized vast amounts of treasure during the sack, including gold, silver, silk tunics, and other valuables. The plunder was significant enough that it left an indelible mark on Roman society and symbolized the decline of Roman power. After sacking Rome, Alaric aimed to move southward into North Africa but fell ill and died shortly thereafter in 410 AD. His death led to further migrations of the Visigoths into Gaul and eventually Spain. The sack of Rome had profound implications for the Western Roman Empire. It highlighted the empire's vulnerability and marked a significant shift in power dynamics within Europe. It also inspired future generations regarding themes of moral decay and decline associated with imperial power, as reflected in works like Augustine's City of God. After the sack of Rome, Alaric's journey ended in death, but the Visigoths' story was just beginning. His death led to a power vacuum within the Visigothic leadership, but his successors, particularly Athalf, Alaric's brother-in-law, continued to pursue the goals of establishing a stable kingdom. Athalf sought to solidify Visigothic power by marrying Galla Placidia, the sister of Emperor Honorius, which aimed to create a diplomatic alliance with Rome and regain territories lost to other barbarian groups like the Vandals and Alans. In 418 CE, under King Wallia, the Visigoths were granted land in Gallia Aquitania by Emperor Honorius as foederati, allied peoples. This territory served as a base for further expansion into Hispania. The Visigoths gradually consolidated their power, defeating local Roman forces and other barbarian tribes. By around 500 CE, they had established control over much of Hispania and parts of southern Gaul, with their capital at Toulouse. By 507 AD, the Visigoths had lost most of their territories in Gaul after they were defeated by Frankish king Clovis I at the Battle of Vouillers in 507. They retained control of Spain, making Toledo their capital. The Visigoth Kingdom reached its height under kings like Liudvigild, who reigned from 568 to 586 CE. His rule is marked by military conquests, political maneuvers, and attempts at religious unification. He defeated the Suebi and fought off Byzantine incursions. Liudvigild is credited with founding new cities, including Recopolis, named after his son Recared. This act not only demonstrated his power, but also contributed to urban development within the kingdom. The kingdom became a melting pot of Visigothic and Hispano-Roman cultures, with a strong legal system based on the Visigothic code. The Visigoths began to adopt Roman customs and Christianity. They established churches and synods that facilitated the integration of Roman culture into their society. The Council of Toledo in 400 AD was particularly significant in addressing issues within the church and governance. Perhaps the most lasting influence of the Visigoths came through culture. Scholars like Isidore of Seville preserved Roman knowledge while integrating it into Gothic society. His work laid the foundations for medieval Spanish thought and education. Under Isidore's influence, the kingdom thrived culturally and religiously. Isidore of Seville, also known by his Latin name Isidorus Hispalensis, was a distinguished Hispano-Roman scholar, theologian, and archbishop who lived from around 560 until his death on April 4, 636. He is remembered as one of the last great minds of the ancient world, significantly influencing the intellectual and cultural development of early medieval Spain. Born in Cartagena to a noble family, Isidore received his early education from his elder brother Leander, a highly regarded bishop. This close family relationship deeply shaped Isidore's lifelong dedication to learning and the Christian faith. Around the year 600 CE, Isidore succeeded his brother Leander as the Archbishop of Seville. He played a central role in converting the Arian Visigoths to Chalcedonian Christianity, working in concert with Visigothic rulers to foster religious unity in a kingdom often divided between Arianism and Catholicism. Isidore was actively involved in various church councils, most notably the Councils of Toledo, which helped define church policies and strengthen the alignment between the monarchy and the church. His most renowned work, Etymologiae, is an encyclopedic collection that spans a wide range of subjects such as grammar, rhetoric, law, medicine, and theology. It became a vital resource for medieval scholars and was widely used as a reference and educational text for many centuries. Isidore was a fervent proponent of education. He promoted the establishment of schools and called for seminaries in every diocese, ensuring that the clergy received adequate instruction. His efforts aimed to preserve the remnants of classical knowledge, which were under threat during the turmoil of barbarian invasions. Thanks to his initiatives, much of ancient learning was safeguarded, earning Isidore the title the schoolmaster of the Middle Ages. His works laid the groundwork for the educational frameworks of medieval Europe. In recognition of his immense contributions to learning and scholarship, Isidore was canonized by the Catholic Church in 1598 and is honored as the patron saint of various groups, including farmers, underscoring his enduring influence in the promotion of knowledge. Isidore passed away on April 4, 636, after more than 30 years of service as an archbishop. His legacy persisted, shaping religious thought and educational practices well beyond his lifetime across medieval Europe. In conclusion, Isidore of Seville was a critical figure in the history of early medieval Spain. His scholarly achievements and dedication to education played a key role in preserving ancient knowledge while helping to bring about unity in a time of religious and cultural change. The latter years of the Visigothic Kingdom were marked by significant political turmoil. Following the death of King Witiza in 710, a power struggle ensued between rival factions. Roderick, who seized the throne, faced opposition from supporters of Witiza's family, particularly Aquila, who claimed kingship in parts of the north. This division weakened the central authority and created an environment of civil war and treachery among the ruling elite. The internal conflicts led to a fragmented state where loyalty was divided among competing claimants to the throne. The historical sources indicate that there were effectively two kings at one point after Witiza's death, which further complicated governance and military response to external threats. The most decisive factor in the downfall was the invasion by Muslim forces from North Africa. In 711, Tariq ibn Ziyad led an army across the Strait of Gibraltar, landing at Calpe, modern Gibraltar. He swiftly defeated Roderick at the Battle of Guadalete, where many members of the Visigothic elite were killed. This defeat opened the way for further Muslim advances into Hispania. Following their victory at Guadalete, Muslim forces quickly advanced through much of the Iberian Peninsula with little organized resistance from the fragmented Visigothic forces. By 712, most of Hispania was under Muslim control, with only small regions remaining free. The combination of civil strife and external invasion led to a rapid collapse of central authority in the Visigothic Kingdom. The internal divisions made it difficult for the Visigoths to mount an effective defense against the Muslim incursions. Once Roderick was defeated and key leaders were lost, there was little left to organize resistance. In the aftermath of their defeat, remnants of Visigothic nobility began to organize resistance movements in northern regions, leading to the eventual establishment of the Kingdom of Asturias under Pelayo. This marked the beginning of what would become known as the Reconquista, a centuries-long effort to reclaim territory from Muslim rule. As the Visigoths, under King Alaric, left their mark on the crumbling Roman Empire, their story was far from the end of the Gothic influence in history. While the Visigoths settled and forged their kingdom in the west, another powerful Gothic tribe was rising in the east. The Ostrogoths, led by a brilliant and ambitious leader, Theodoric the Great, the Ostrogoths would soon play a defining role in what remained of the Roman Empire. Their chapter in history is just as dramatic and perhaps even more decisive in the fate of Rome. Let's explore how they reshaped the future of Europe. Theodoric was born in 454 AD in Pannonia, near the old antique city of Carnuntum, modern-day Austria. He was born in the time when Goths had thrown off nearly a century of domination by the Huns. Remember from our video about the Huns, Attila died in 453, and soon after that, Huns' kingdom perished. He was a son of chieftain Theodomir, Germanic Amali nobleman. Amali were the leading dynasty of the Goths and became the royal house of the Ostrogoths later in the 5th century. Theodoric was sent to Constantinople as a hostage in 461, when his father Theodomir signed a treaty with Eastern Roman Emperor Leo I. He stayed in Constantinople until 469 and received classical education, at least from a barbaric point of view. He learned to read, write, and perform arithmetic. We will soon return to his journey. We briefly talked about barbaric invasions and fall of Rome in our recent videos, but as Latin proverb goes, repetitio est mater studiorum, or repetition is the mother of learning, we will quickly repeat what we already know and add some new informations about the state of Europe in that period. So to begin with, Huns have been gone since around 453 to 454 AD. Vandals have had their own kingdom in North Africa since 435. We covered them in depth in our last video. Visigoths, western cousins of Ostrogoths, established a kingdom in Iberian Peninsula and southern part of ex-Roman province Gaul, modern France. Their kingdom lasts from 418 to 711 AD, when it was destroyed by Tariq ibn Ziyad, a Muslim Berber client of Musa bin Nusayr, the governor of Islamic Africa. Franks, about whom we will talk extensively, established their kingdom under the rule of their prominent king, Clovis I, in northern Gaul, modern Belgium, Netherlands, France. Today's video is all about the Ostrogoths, the eastern branch of the great Gothic tribe, their leader Theodoric the Great and his kingdom. Stay with me until the end to discover the fascinating details of these significant historical events. In the north, Britain has its own Anglo-Saxon history from 410 AD on. At that year, Western Roman Empire decided to abandon the province Britannia, and soon after Germanic tribes of Angles, Saxon and Jutes began to settle in Britain. We will cover those events in depth in the near future. In the Eastern Mediterranean, there was the Great East Roman Empire, or Byzantine Empire, which survived until 1453 and played a key role in European Middle Age politics until then. For the record, the name Byzantine Empire was invented by humanist historian Hieronymus Wolff in 1557 when his work Corpus Historiae Byzantina was published. People of the Eastern Roman Empire called themselves Romans until the end of the empire in 1453. Now, I owe you a story about exactly how the so-called fall of Rome happened. There are few characters important in this story. Our main protagonists are Romulus Augustulus, young boy emperor, and the other one is Odoacer, Germanic military leader in Italy. There are a few more important persons: Orestes, Romulus's father from Roman province Pannonia, with ties to the late Attila and his Huns, and Julius Nepos, Western Roman emperor from 475 to 476. For not to be too long, Orestes became Magister Militum, top Roman military leader in 475. He was appointed by Julius Nepos. After that, Orestes took control of Ravenna. Ravenna was capital of Western Empire since 402. After that, Julius Nepos had to fled to Salona, modern Split, Croatia. Orestes then elevated his son Romulus as Augustus. Romulus Augustulus was deposed by Odoacer on 4th September 476. He was sent to monastery in Ravenna. His father Orestes was not so lucky. Odoacer warriors killed him on August 28th. After that, Odoacer did not appoint a new emperor like Germanic warlords did in previous situations like that. He ruled Italy by himself, backed by the Roman Senate. He was recognizing the overlordship of the Eastern Emperor, Zeno. So now we know exactly what happened in Rome on the 4th of September 476. We should ask ourselves, what is the correct word or phrase to describe the end of the Roman Empire? Is it the fall of the Roman Empire? Is it collapse of the Roman Empire? Or is it better to use the somewhat neutral and undramatic word transformation? If we listen to Paul Friedman, professor for medieval history at Yale University, the end of the Roman Empire was not a one-day event, but a slow disintegration that lasted from around 410 to approximately 480. It was dismembered by barbarian groups. We talk about them in our videos. Their intention was not to destroy the Roman Empire, except for the Huns. They wanted to be part of the empire to share its wealth and accomplishments. Our story about Theodoric and his Ostrogothic Kingdom in Italy confirms that theory. Theodoric's father died in 471, and Theodoric became his successor, leading Goths around Balkan Peninsula to find a place to live. Goths moved to Lower Moesia, today Bulgaria, and had some internal problems with other Gothic groups, especially with a group led by chieftain Theodoric Strabo. At that time, the situation in Balkan Peninsula was chaotic, and Theodoric had to show a lot of ability to overcome all the problems that he faced. Theodoric had turbulent relations with the Eastern Roman Empire and its emperor Zeno. Zeno ruled in the Eastern Empire from 474 to 491. He gave him the title of patrician and the office of master of the soldiers, and even appointed him as consul in 484. But Theodoric was attacking Eastern Roman provinces on numerous occasions nonetheless. The big change in the life of Theodoric came in 488, when he was ordered by Zeno to attack Odoacer in Italy due to very tense relations between Odoacer and the Eastern Roman Empire. The war between Theodoric and Odoacer lasted until 493. It was bloody and took a great toll on people in the Odoacer Kingdom. And now it is time to tell you a story about how Odoacer life finished. As I said, it was an event worthy of Game of Thrones. It was some kind of a red wedding. When Ostrogoths were unable to take Ravenna, two leaders agreed they would rule the kingdom together. There was a feast organized to honor that on the 15th of March, 493. And on 15th March, do you know who was killed on 15th March circa 500 years earlier? Julius Caesar in 44 BCE. 15th March in the Roman Empire was the day of Ide of March, the day associated with misfortune and doom. And that day was really doomed for Caesar, and 547 years later for great Odoacer, conqueror of Rome. It is said that on the feast, Theodoric killed him with his own hands, sliced him in half, but let's leave details alone, as they are bloody as hell. Theodoric went on to murder the dead man's wife and son, and to massacre his followers remorselessly throughout northern Italy. After that, Theodoric ruled in Italy all but himself, and the stage is set for the story about the Ostrogothic Kingdom, an important player in Europe at the beginning of the Middle Ages. Theodoric styled himself simply as king, or rex in Latin. Like his predecessor Odovacar, Theodoric understood the importance of recognition from the Eastern Roman Emperor. Diplomatic missions seeking confirmation of his rule were dispatched to Constantinople before Theodoric had even secured full control of Italy. However, Emperor Zeno's death in 491 complicated matters, and his successor Anastasius hesitated to recognize Theodoric's authority. Thus, Theodoric's rise to kingship in Italy occurred without imperial approval. Only after extended negotiations in 498 did Anastasius finally acknowledge Theodoric's rule by returning the Ornamenta Palatii, symbolizing acceptance of Theodoric's independent reign over Italy. One of Theodoric's first challenges was finding a suitable location for his Ostrogothic followers. Rather than dispersing them widely across the Italian peninsula, he chose to settle them primarily in the north, around cities like Pavia, Ravenna, and Picenum. For 33 years, Ostrogoths and Romans coexisted relatively peacefully, despite notable cultural differences. The military remained firmly in the hands of the Ostrogoths, with Roman citizens largely excluded from army and officer roles. The Ostrogothic Kingdom is often highlighted among the barbarian successor states for its uniquely Roman character. Theodoric's policies reflected a commitment to integrating the Goths into Roman political structures, striving for a unified rule over both Goths and Romans within the framework of Roman imperial traditions. As the ruler of Italy, Theodoric managed two governmental hubs, Ravenna, home to the imperial administration, and Rome, the seat of the Senate. Balancing the power and influence between these two centers required Theodoric's careful attention, a challenge faced by many of his predecessors as well. Theodoric was also adept at forging alliances with other so-called barbarian kingdoms through strategic marriages, setting a precedent for the use of marriage as a political tool, a practice that would define medieval diplomacy. He arranged for his sisters and daughters to marry key rulers of the time, including the Frankish king Clovis I, who wed Theodoric's sister. Between 504 and 505, Theodoric expanded his influence in the Balkans by defeating the Gepids and acquiring Pannonia. By 523, Theodoric's kingdom reached its zenith, stretching from the Atlantic to the Danube. However, his later reign was marred by the execution of the Roman scholar Boethius, an act Theodoric came to regret. Theodoric died in August 526 and was laid to rest in a grand tomb in Ravenna, which still stands today. He was succeeded by his grandson Alaric, the son of his daughter Amalasuntha. Boethius and Cassiodorus are two key figures in the preservations of classical learning from antique to the Middle Ages. Boethius, born in Rome in 480 into a wealthy patrician family, was probably one of the last persons in the West who knew Greek. For sure, he was the last person who tried to make Greek knowledge known to people who could only read in Latin. His goal was to translate all of Plato and Aristotle into Latin. His project was never completed because he was accused by Theodoric of conspiring with the Byzantine Empire to overthrow him. Before he was executed, aged 44, in 524, he was imprisoned for a year, and during that time he wrote his most important work, one of magnificent works of philosophy named Consolation of Philosophy. Cassiodorus, on the other side, lived to be 90. Cassiodorus was more oriented towards Latin learning. He was a religious figure like Boethius. Boethius wrote on Christian topics, but the Consolation of Philosophy was stoical work and has very little explicitly about Christianity. On the other side is one of the most important achievements of Cassiodorus, his idea that monks should copy manuscripts, according to Professor Paul Friedman from Yale. Cassiodorus thought that places where antique knowledge and culture should be preserved are monasteries. The praxis was then widely spread through Europe during the entire Middle Ages, although until the time of Cassiodorus monasteries were anti-intellectual institutions where you pray and you don't spend a lot of time reading, let alone copying, let alone thinking. The fate of Boethius showed the sort of duality of the barbarian patronage of culture. On the one hand, Theodoric tried to be as civilized as possible. He tried to unite late Roman and barbarian Ostrogothic ideology. On the other hand, he executed Boethius, which of course is not only barbarian praxis. We all know the fate of great Seneca, who was forced to commit suicide by Emperor Nero. So, the fate of the intellectuals in the Roman Empire is not necessarily so much better than the fate of intellectuals in barbarian kingdoms. The difference is that there were very few intellectuals in barbarian kingdoms. To conclude this chapter, we can easily state that Boethius and Cassiodorus are two of the smartest people of the 6th century, judging by what they wrote. Like Isidore of Seville is one of the smartest men of the 7th century, and Bede and Alcuin are the same in the 8th century. So the fact that both worked in the Ostrogothic Kingdom underlines the fact of its importance for the early Middle Ages history. Following Theodoric's death on 30 August 526, his accomplishments swiftly began to unravel. With Eutharic having passed away in 523, Theodoric was succeeded by his young grandson Alaric, under the regency of his mother Amalasuntha. The absence of a strong and capable successor led to the gradual collapse of the intricate alliances that had held the Ostrogothic state together. Amalasuntha's regency was marked by turmoil, and after a series of conspiracies and the death of her son Alaric in 534, she was executed in early May 535. Her downfall provided Eastern Roman Emperor Justinian fresh from his victory in the Vandalic Wars, as discussed in our previous video on the Vandals, with a convenient pretext to intervene in Italy and dismantle the Ostrogothic Kingdom. Thus began the Gothic War, which raged from 535 to 554 across Italy, Dalmatia, Sardinia, Sicily, and Corsica. The war stemmed from Justinian's broader goal of reclaiming the provinces of the former Western Roman Empire, lost to barbarian incursions during the migration period. By the war's end, Italy lay in ruins, its population drastically reduced. This devastation left the Byzantine victors too weakened to fend off the Lombard invasion of 568, which led to the loss of much of the Italian peninsula. So there we have it, from the rise of the Visigoths, led by King Alaric, who shook the very foundations of ancient Rome in 410 AD, to the rise of the Ostrogoths under the rule of Theodoric the Great, who carved out his own legacy in the ruins of the Roman Empire. These moments were more than just the fall of a city or the displacement of emperors. They were the beginning of a new era in the history of Europe. Through ambition, survival, and resilience, the Goths played a pivotal role in shaping the world as we know it today. Their story is a reminder that history is never just about the rise and fall of empires. It's about the people, their struggles, and their vision for the future. If you found this journey through history as fascinating as I did, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories about the past that shaped our world. And if you'd like to dive deeper into discussions about European history, from the Middle Ages to the fall of Rome, join my Facebook group, where we explore the rich and complex tapestry of history together. Thank you for watching, and until next time, let's keep uncovering the past.